Let's go back to the beginning because the story is so compelling. When you meet Mitt, you're in your teens, right? You're young, and you had not yet become a Mormon. As a matter of fact, you eventually become a Mormon, and you're baptized by George Romney, right?
Right. Mitt was gone. I was his only convert on his mission. Not exactly, but he said his best one. And while Mitt was on his mission, George Romney basically was taking me to church every Sunday, and I just really loved the guy so much. And he, again, any of you are from Michigan, I mean, even though Mitt's father has been gone so long, and he was governor in the 1960s, his name is still golden in the state of Michigan. Everyone knows that he was a rare individual. And so George actually baptized me while Mitt was on his mission, so.
Now, what I found interesting, too, was you started to date, and then I think Mitt goes on a trip where you go to France to study French, because you have a degree in French.
Right.
And while you're separated, you start dating other people, and Mitt writes you this letter saying...
Oh, this is amazing. You've actually read my book.
Yes, ma'am.
This is great. I have to say, I've been interviewed by people that haven't read the book, so...
I read it and listened to it.
I did study in France. I went to the University of Grenoble. I will tell a quick side story there that's really fun too. It was 1968, and it was the Winter Olympics in Grenoble, and I was in Grenoble. And I would hitchhike. It was very, very safe in France then to hitchhike. And I would hitchhike up the mountain to ski, and I would watch the American ski team practicing. There were no gates, fences, security. It was just like nothing. It was just like there was a ski resort and there were skiers. It was so fun. The American ski team was there, but the person that I watched the most and absolutely had the biggest crush on was Jean-Claude Killy. And Jean-Claude Killy was 6'4". He won all these gold medals in Grenoble, so he became my first real European crush. And I have to fast forward and tell you that when Mitt was doing the Olympics in Salt Lake, and it was the Winter Olympics in skiing, and Jean-Claude Killy is on the International Olympic Committee, I said something to a reporter in Salt Lake City. I'm just off the top of my head. This is what happens when you don't think. And I said something about, oh, this is going to be fun to meet Jean-Claude Killy, because I had a crush on him when I was a teenager. And before you know it, that's in the French press in Paris.
Oh.
And then about a week later, I have Jean-Claude Killy coming to my home for dinner. And so the papers and all the photographers and everything want to take a picture of me meeting my crush, which the French were very proud of. And so that's kind of like a funny story that happened to me while I was studying in France. But then I came back and was in regular, just at Brigham Young University, and was dating a lot and having a great time. And Mitt now had been gone over 2 years, and I'd kind of even forgotten what he looked like. And I thought my heart was going to break when he left, but you know, things happen. But the poor guy still did not forget what I looked like, and he was absolutely, in one of my letters I happened to mention that I was dating the captain of the basketball team, and you know, head student body president, and you know, people like that. And it kind of got to Mitt, and I mean, I feel terrible about it now, but I was just being honest, and he was being heartbroken. Because you don't date or anything when you're on your missions. You're just really in military, just with guys. And no, he was crushed.
Yeah.
He was crushed, but he forgave me.
I remember reading about the letter. I remember where I was when I was listening to it. And the letter impressed you so much with the quality of a man he is that you said, I got to see this guy.
I know. With me writing and just saying, oh, by the way, I know you're going to come home soon, but I'm kind of dating and seeing other people. And he wrote me back the most extraordinary letter, which was so mature and so kind and so loving that it really impressed me.
The press, I thought, I'll admit it, I voted for your husband. I thought he was fabulous. I voted for him twice. I just thought and I still think the world of both of you, I just thought these are true people. And I thought they were always, the press was rough, thinking that people are privileged. But if you read this book, you'll read that the Romneys didn't have everything given to them. I mean, you pinched pennies and ate tuna out of a can, and all of these little things, and brought your children up with values. But I never knew that you had such a punch.
I know. I'm a terrible mother. I have 5 sons. I think all of you know that. And I'm very honest in the book. And my boys got the better of me a bunch of times. But once, I really lost it. And my 2 older boys were fighting. And they were at this point probably like big enough to really hurt each other. They were probably 14 and 15, something like that. They were really going at it, and I thought they were going to go right through the plate glass window. And I mean, they were really physically going after each other. And I got so mad, and I went in there, and instead of just like calming them down, I hauled off and punched one of them so hard, it knocked the wind out of him. And my father, who was standing, happened to be visiting and was there, looked at me, looked at this, and he just shakes his head and he goes, "Oh, Ann, what have those boys done to you?" Because I was always the peacemaker. I had 2 brothers growing up, and I was always the one that just kept the peace and was quiet and sweet, and just everything was always good with me. I don't think my father ever raised his voice to me. I was never punished because as he said, I was his little angel, and I never did anything wrong. So for him to see what the boys had turned me into was something. So I'm very honest in the book. That was not my best parenting moment.
A lot of people may find this hard to believe, but Mitt and Ann have never had a fight.
Well, we don't always agree, but we've never once raised our voice to each other.
Even when you left the top down from the car.
Right. Mitt really loves cars, and he's a Detroit guy, but he's also really cheap. And he would never buy himself anything. And so when he was turning 40, the boys and I scoured the newspapers, and we found a used BMW that was like 3 years old, and I bought it. And I gave it to Mitt for his 40th birthday, and it was fantastic. It's a 1985. It's a 1985 BMW. By the way, Mitt is so cheap, he's still driving that car. He loves it. And it was his pride and joy, but he would only drive it if it wasn't raining or snowing or anything like that. He parked it in the garage a lot and would drive an old beat-up car to work. But one day, I drove it, and I left the sunroof open, and it rained a lot. And Mitt came storming in one morning, going into the car and seeing like that much water in the bottom of his car, thinking the boys, at this point they're old enough to drive, thinking the boys had done this, and he comes just storming in, screaming at who did this, and the boys are like, oh, like, no, not me, and I'm like, oh, it was me. And he goes instantly, oh, it's all right, sweetie. We can fix it. It'll be fine. And the boys are like, wait, no, that's not fair.
So fast forward, it's 2008. While he's governor, people are saying, in 2008, maybe you should run for president. So he comes out in 2008, and you say in the book, we learned valuable lessons in that election period.
Yes. It's running for office in a state level. You think you know how this works. You run for national office, it's like it's a whole different ballgame, and it is so much more complicated. It's so much tougher. There's so many more things to it. The fundraising is enormous. The country is huge. I mean, you're just all over the place, and the press you magnify it by 100 with the scrutiny that you're going to get, and then you realize how unfair the press is as well, and they have an agenda, and you're not part of their plan.
You'll have to read the book to get all the story of what happened in 08, 2012. You do it again, and it's a tough fight. We watch the debates, we watch how Mitt performs, and in the end, when it's over, he gives the classiest speech I've ever seen an elected person give.
Yeah, I was so proud of him.
Who was not successful. I mean, it was just classy.
Yeah, he's a classy guy. He's a classy guy, and as we all know, he was right on so many things. And he would have been a great president.
So, Sean. So a couple of weeks ago, you're sitting with our friend Sean Hannity, and he asked, hey, did you think about maybe trying it one more time? And you said...
Maybe for 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's, we know all of the candidates that are running except for Ted Cruz. He's the only one I've never met. And, I know them all. I know their wives. And I know on the other side, obviously we know Hillary as well. We don't know Bernie Sanders. Boy, this is just an interesting election cycle. That's all I've got to say.
Did you ever feel that people tried to use your faith against Mitt during the time he was running?
Well, for sure. I mean, all opponents try to, take whatever advantage they can to diminish you, and they knew that might be a vulnerability, and of course they tried to do that. It didn't surprise us. It disappointed us. But Mitt again gave one of the most extraordinary speeches on religious liberty and freedoms with George Bush Sr. At College Station, and it was one of the masterpieces of religious liberty. If anyone ever wants to just Google that, it is a fantastic speech on what this country is founded on and the principles that make it so strong.
Because we saw a spar the last couple of days between Ben Carson and Donald Trump. First it was on what Trump's faith was, and then Trump came out of nowhere yesterday and suddenly said, I'm just saying, Seventh-day Adventist, what is that? And, hearing that must have felt like deja vu.
It's really wrong. It's really wrong. And, but it's predictable. And what I think Trump said, I'm right down the middle. I'm Presbyterian.